Hey folks, welcome to the Ramble. I am going to talk in this video about something that I used to talk about a lot and haven't talked about regularly for a while, but it's atheism and the atheist skeptical community. And I've been thinking about it a lot the last week or so for personal reasons and for larger reasons. The Secular Women Work Conference was just a couple weeks ago, which I didn't attend, but a lot of my friends were there and a lot of people I really admire. And I think that event is an example of the atheist community, the organized portion of the atheist community really doing something right and something important and something that should be emulated and supported and continued. Just as was the Secular Social Justice Conference from several months ago in DC, which I was able to attend. And also there was an article in the Washington Post this past week about David Silverman and the sexual harassment allegations against him and the sort of fallout from him being removed as president of American Atheists. And then American Atheists named their new permanent president. And also, on the more personal note, last week was my final episode of the An Atheist Reads series, which I've been doing recurringly since 2012, and I decided that this year would be the last year that I would do An Atheist Reads, and I would sort of step away from that project. And so I've been thinking a lot about the atheist community in real life, quote unquote, the atheist community online, specifically here on YouTube, and the various outgrowths of it, you know, on other social media platforms. And I keep asking myself the same question, which is, who is the atheist community, the atheist movement supposed to be for at this point? And what is my place in it? I remember when I first started getting into atheism and getting into YouTube atheism in particular, when I first started sort of dabbling in making my own videos about it, I was one of those people that was very into the evolution versus creationism debate. I made videos about that. I made videos explaining why I thought that creationist arguments were bad and why the evidence for evolution was compelling. And I participated in that. And I mean, if I wanted to pat myself on the back, I could say, well, you know, my stuff was never as bullying and as hectoring and as condescending toward creationists as some of these other people's stuff was. And I guess maybe that's true, but there was still that us versus them mentality. And a lot of the people who came to the community in the first place, either as audience members or as people who became well known within this circle, who got thousands and thousands of subscribers and eventually got to the point where they could make a career, they could make a living off of doing YouTube videos. They came to it as a part of that adversarial setup where they would make videos attacking other people. And people liked the fact that they were attacking people that they disagreed with or they thought were foolish or they thought were dangerous or harmful or what have you. And they watched those videos and enjoyed them. And then after a certain point, attacking creationists, attacking apologists, attacking religious extremists became less interesting or less profitable, less of a sure thing to attract views. So that attack model, that adversarial us versus them model, was ported over to other arguments. So it wasn't just atheism versus religion or evolution versus creationism. It became people in our group versus people in that group. And our group might be people living in Western society, and their group might be people living in the Muslim world. And it was no longer a question of religion, although a lot of people tried to cloak it in that, to make it sound like it was a little less bigoted and prejudiced than it actually was. They said, oh no, we don't have a problem with Muslim people. We don't have a problem. It's not a racial thing. It's not a cultural thing. We disagree with them and we think their religious beliefs are dangerous, and we're just trying to explain why. But you can't really ignore, I mean, you can willfully ignore it, but I think if you look at it straight in the face. You can't get away from the fact that there's a very heavy racist, xenophobic flavor to a lot of the Western, mostly white men attacking Muslims, attacking Muslim culture, certainly attacking things in Muslim culture that are extreme, that are radical, that are oppressive, but doing it in a way that paints all Muslims all over the world with that extremist radical brush, and thereby vilifies an entire incredibly diverse, incredibly general group of people on the basis of the actions of the very, very worst, most violent members of that very large group. And that just became something that a lot of atheists started doing, and a lot of other atheists who were in their audiences started to applaud and cheer for and want more of. And I think that conflict, and I think that sense of being able to think of yourself as being smarter than someone else is what attracted and kept a lot of people in this movement. And that's unfortunate, because that's not a good basis on which to build a community. We're smarter than they are. We're morally superior than they are. It's probably even worse. We've really flattered ourselves over the years because we got one question right, we think, right? We figured out there's no God, so that means we're the smart ones. We're the unbiased ones. We're the moderate ones. We're the ones that don't have a dog in the fight because we don't believe in any of these gods. So we're above it all. We're the smart ones. And because we thought we were the smart ones when it came to atheism, we figured, well, we're right about this. We must be right about other things too. Or the people that we listen to, the people that we watch YouTube videos, the people whose podcasts we hear. Well, they're right about this. So when they talk about this other thing, well, they must be right too. Even if that other thing has nothing to do with atheism or religion. That's how there can still be so many people who will just reflexively and stubbornly defend Sam Harris, even when he is promoting someone like Charles Murray and scientific racism. That's not rational. That's not scientific. That's an utterly debunked, discredited philosophy and point of view. Scientifically, we like to think we're the pro-science people. We're the rational, reasonable people. We're the people who follow the evidence. And yet how many people came to Sam Harris's defense when he had Charles fucking Murray on his podcast and treated him like an intellectual king in exile? Because he was right about that one thing about the existence of God, well, he must be right about this other thing too. He's just so smart. He's so reasonable and rational. So therefore, I'm going to defend him even when he talks absolute fucking racist nonsense. And then because we get used to people that we respect, people who are smart, attacking other people, and not only, of course, did they start attacking religious folks, and particularly Muslims, they also started attacking progressives. They started warning about the dangers of political correctness and leftist college students not wanting to listen to them anymore. I don't know, maybe there's a point where the push for equality and tolerance just goes too far. Look, I have no problem with LGBTQ people at all, but how far are we supposed to take this? So they start talking like that, and you think, yeah, you know what? He was right about this, and I defended him about that, so I guess he must be right about these people too. And then, when someone who isn't even an atheist, who is in fact overtly religious, like Jordan Peterson, can come around, and he's not saying anything about atheism. If anything, he says things that express his disagreement with it. But he can come out, and because he's saying the right things about those people over there, those mistrusted groups, those groups that the audience feels oppressed by, or hemmed in by, or shunned or shushed or kept out of the mainstream unfairly by, because he's saying the right things about them, and he's saying, listen, you guys don't have to do anything different. You guys are doing the right thing. You guys aren't the problem. It's them over there. And it's all those people that are being too sensitive or being too concerned about their feelings. It's them over there that are the problem, not you. And you say, you know what? Yeah, maybe he's not an atheist, but he makes a lot of sense. And that's not anything that I ever wanted to be a part of, or ever will willingly be a part of. And it doesn't matter to me if a person is an atheist or a skeptic, or if a person has atheist or skeptic or some similar identifier in their public name, in their handle. The dogmatic acceptance and respect of those labels. Oh, he's an atheist, he's a skeptic, so he must be rational. He must know what he's talking about. That very idea, that lack of critical thinking and thought and reflection is what has allowed people like that to continue to retain a great deal of their audiences and a great deal of credibility with a certain set of people, despite the fact that they have mostly completely abandoned talking about atheism, talking about skepticism, talking sensibly about religion and what its place in society ought to be, and now are publicly shitting their pants because the actress who played Lara Croft doesn't have big enough boobs, or the character designs for the new She-Ra cartoon aren't sexy enough, or their favorite white nationalist or closet white nationalist isn't welcome on a certain campus, or has had his Twitter profile deleted, or has had his YouTube channel banned. Because that's really the act at this point. It's very little actual atheism and skepticism. It's pushing white supremacy and misogyny and xenophobia, religious bigotry, religious intolerance, Nazi sympathizing, but saying, well, but I'm not a Nazi. I'm not a Nazi sympathizer. I'm not a white supremacist. I'm a skeptic. I'm a reasonable person. I'm a rational person. A few years ago, I realized that I didn't care about arguing religious people out of their religion. As long as you're a good person and you're not hurting other people, you're not using your religion to impose the rules of your church on other people, or have them written into civil law, you're not using your religious beliefs as an excuse to mistreat people or be an intolerant or abusive or prejudiced or discriminatory person. As long as you're a good person, I don't give a shit what your religion is. And I have no interest whatsoever in arguing you out of your religion or in trying to convince you that your religion is false. I will believe what I believe. You will believe what you believe. And it doesn't matter to me one bit. It's the least important thing in the world to me. What I am interested in is having a community and a movement that is a positive force in society in general, and is a place that is useful and welcoming to other atheists, other non-religious folks of whatever label they apply to themselves, and not having to put up with people who squirm or complain and piss and moan about having to remember which pronouns people use, who won't treat that as some kind of burden on them, as opposed to the most basic fundamental respect that you can pay another human being, to use their right name. That's not a burden. That's not something that I get mixed up or crossed up over. Oh, gee, this is just political correctness gone mad. Now I have to keep track of everybody's pronouns. Now I have to pay people basic respect, as though I haven't been trying to do that all along anyway. Have a movement where that kind of shit isn't everywhere. Where people who are trans, who are gay, who are neurodivergent, who are living with disabilities, who are living with mental illness, who are of all skin colors, of all ethnicities, of all national origins, people who were never raised in any religion, people who are formerly Christian, who are formerly Muslim, who are formerly Hindu or Jewish or whatever, can come and be welcome and not be bullied and not be harassed and not be subjected to insults and abuse and not be asked to sit in a space where the person up on stage is a professional harasser of women or a professional harasser of trans people or someone who has promoted anti-immigrant stuff, white nationalist talking points. Our civilization is being threatened by immigration. Not be asked to support an organization and be part of a community and then sit in an audience while someone like that is up on stage allowed to speak his piece and say whatever he wants and be regarded as a serious person whose views should be regarded with legitimacy. I know I'm not perfect. I know that I, like everybody, am a work in progress, and that despite my best intentions, there are often times when I fall short, when I say something that I didn't think through and probably shouldn't have said, when I express an opinion that I didn't think through the ramifications of, et cetera, et cetera. When I exhibit a bias or a prejudice or an unwarranted assumption that I didn't realize was there until someone pointed it out to me. That kind of stuff happens with me from time to time, and it will probably continue to happen with me, and as it has happened with a lot of you. So I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I make an effort when I make videos about anything, about Star Trek, a Stephen Stuffy video, or when I'm talking about a political issue or a religious question or whatever. I always make an effort to be respectful, to be fair, to be sensitive to the needs or the expectations of other people, to not be needlessly insulting, to not be abusive or harassing, to not present myself or my arguments or my characterization of another person in a way that will inspire someone who watches the video to go after that person, to attack that person. I make an effort not to be that, because that's important to me. I make an effort to be at least a baseline decent person, and to see that that comes through in the videos, because that's important to me, because that's how I want to be thought of, and because that's the person that I want people to see when they watch my videos. And I don't intend or expect that anyone will emulate anything that I do in any of these videos, but if they do, I would like it to be that. To recognize that you can be skeptical and you can be critical of things. You can even be angry about things and be passionate about things without being needlessly abusive, without accepting or promoting or tolerating intolerance and bigotry and oppression, without carrying water for fucking white nationalists or misogynists or xenophobes. That it's possible to do those things. That skepticism does not mean that you turn off your humanity. That skepticism does not require you to shut off your decency or your sensitivity or your concern about other people. So this one's really been a ramble, hasn't it? I picked the right series in which to have this little monologue. And I apologize if I'm repeating myself. I know a lot of these things I've said before, but it's been on my mind with the end of the Atheist Read series and the other things I mentioned. I'm still an atheist. I'm still going to make YouTube videos that will reflect my atheism and my skepticism and my lack of religious faith, but not in a way that dehumanizes or assaults or belittles people who happen to have religious faith. If I'm going to attack something about religion, I'm not going to attack the sincere faith of good people. I'm going to attack the times when it's used to cause harm, when it's used to legitimize awful, evil things. That's something that I wish that the atheist community was about more often. And unfortunately, it's not. I wish it was about that, and I wish it was about fighting back against the things that make life more difficult for atheists, not just white atheists, but atheists of color and women and LGBTQ atheists. I wish it was more about that. And there are areas of it that are. I mentioned secular women work. I mentioned the Secular Social Justice Conference. There are areas of it that are very much concerned about those things and deserve and will continue to have my support. But I wish that was most of it. You know what I mean? I wish that when people looked at the atheist community from the outside, they saw a group of conscientious, aware, educated people who are dedicated to secularism and separation of church and state and proper science education, but are also dedicated to social justice and to humanism and to supporting people who need support and to fighting intolerance wherever they find it, whether it's outside or especially within their ranks. That would be an atheist community that I would be proud to be a part of. And I would have none of these concerns or complaints or insecurities or questions that I have been blathering about throughout this video. And I think that would be better for everybody, don't you?